Yeah, so yeah, we were talking about Steve Martin just perfectly encapsulates the dad image in
Mhm,
film and everything.
mhm.
So yeah, but I we've kind of been going back and forth on both of them, but what are your thoughts on the sequel?
One more thing about the father. I think
Yeah.
if is there a potential that we can cut this out if
Oh
it's a
yeah, I can.
controversial take. I don't want it to be taken in a way that I don't want it to be taken.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think the reason why the remake with uh Gloria Estefan,
Hmm.
I think the reason that one didn't work is because the father figure in it is not as just like relatable as the 90s version.
Yeah, because Steve Martin just he oozes that feeling of like everyman. Like he's just kind of
Yeah.
like your average guy. So
I feel like they made him too rich in the new one.
I didn't see the new one, but I know what you mean because I saw like some
And
of the promotional stuff.
they added like the element of divorce, which is just like it completely throws off the dynamic. Like
Hmm.
what makes George Banks or like the character that is George Banks, I believe he has a different name in both the original and the remake.
Yeah.
Um George Banks is how much he loves the women in his life. And I mean, without when you add divorce into that, that changes the dynamic of it in a way that I don't think benefits the storyline. I think that was a fault with the newest remake that came out last year, I believe.
No, I think you're onto something because, and the weird thing too is that I honestly think though, again, because it really is up to the filmmakers because I think divorce, like if you want to remake something, like you want to update something or make a change and maybe improve on something that was lacking,
Mm-hmm.
Father of the Bride, like sure, like maybe if you want to change a couple of things just to tell your own story, but they were successful movies for a reason.
Yeah.
I honestly think they could have done a good job with the divorce angle because maybe sure like this would have been interesting. Okay, maybe as a husband he was lacking in certain areas, but he was still a really good dad. And
Yeah.
that was his focus because he had made so many mistakes, so he was trying to overcompensate. That could have been a
Mm-hmm.
different angle, but again, I still haven't seen the movie, but from what I saw, it felt very cold. And that's kind of how you
That's what I
described
got
it.
too. It wasn't warm and fuzzy like the ones that like we know and love are. And maybe that's
Yeah.
because we're purists in the sense that we've grown up with Father of the Bride parts one and two throughout,
Yeah.
our lives. But there's not a lack of struggle in either of the Father of the Bride. So I just think it was definitely a choice for them to add that into the mixture
Yeah.
on top of everything because you know the struggle I think that almost pulls away from what we're supposed to really be looking at, and it's this beautiful relation between a father and a daughter. They're
Oh
kind
yeah.
of pulling away some of the attention from that dynamic and bringing it to the marriage where we're supposed to just see Nina as this powerful woman who's level head pants wearer. I don't want to say girl boss because that's gross.
Yeah.
And yeah, I can be a girl and not be a boss, and it's fine.
Yeah.
Um, but that's like, you know, that's her character. And to kind of give them more struggle than Nina is, like trying to be the voice of reason
Yeah.
against George's, you know, impassioned, the ramblings of an impassioned father,
Yeah.
I think, pulls away from what we know and love and identify in watching Father of the Bride.
Oh yeah. And I think that honestly applies to a lot of remakes where for me, I know it's tough because, especially Hollywood being a business, like you remake something because it's an established brand that worked and like it has almost guaranteed box office or a success rate. But if you want to remake something, remake it because you think you can make it better. That's actually a challenge.
Mhm.
And a lot of people, when they talk about the best remakes ever, usually they're from the 90s, like Father of the Bride. Because let's be honest, like I feel like Father of the Bride, most people remember the Steve Martin ones more than the
Yeah.
Spencer Tracy one. And the 80s too, like I'm a big horror guy, and like whenever people talk about like The Thing or The Fly, they talk about the ones from the 80s, not the 50s.
Mhm.
So, and because not that those are bad, but it's like
Yeah.
there was they were made by people who saw the potential in these other stories, and they were like, okay, let's really amplify the effects, let's amplify the writing. And and when you do something where, again, like I'm not completely against remakes. Some of the best films of all time are remakes. But when you do something that not only loses the human touch that we had, but feels so like far removed from what it
Mhm.
originally was, then like you don't feel connected to it anymore. You
Yeah.
you feel stale.
Hmm. Yeah. Like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I don't, and
Wise
a
words.
lot of, when something's originally remade, I often find that the first remake is actually enhancing the material. If
Yeah.
we have a third remake in there, we're kind of watering down what we loved about the original remake.
Yeah. Yeah.
And maybe we'll find a third remake down the line that we're all like vomiting love over, but I just think when something's really good, it doesn't need to be changed,
Yeah.
or aspects of it don't need to be changed. Had they taken out the divorce aspect of that, it'd probably have been a better film. And I don't mean that to be like children of divorce shouldn't see themselves represented in the media. I say that because it like actually hurt the story.
Oh yeah.
I feel like
No.
Mark going, divorce.
No, me every time like I mention my parents being split, Mark is like, if you want to talk about
If you ever
it.
want to talk about it, Ryan, I am here.
Oh man. No, again, like excuse me, stuff like that can be done well. It's just, when it just feels forced or when it feels like just unnatural to the story, and it kind of takes away like any sort of relation to what it could have been, what it should
Mhm.
be. Like there are ways to advance a story and update them. Maybe they did it because like I guess like divorce rates are higher. I really don't know why they did it.
That
Like
would be a weird thing to take and run with.
yeah, like
Another
that's
thing about remakes that I don't always love,
not
this
that I
is
said they
straight
did.
to more a remake talk than a Father of the Bride talk. Elements that did work in the remake that you try to like emulate again
Mhm.
in an updated version. A lot of the things that worked in those remakes have to do with chemistry on sets.
Yeah.
And that's something you can't recreate. I mean, when you have best friends, Martin Short and Steve Martin on set, like you can't recreate that. I believe they also cut out the Franck aspect in the newer versions, which I think Franck is one of the best written characters of all time. Hello,
Just that name too.
Franck.
Frank.
Mhm.
Oh man. No, just little touches like that too, like characters that again, I still haven't seen the remake, so I can't really talk too much about like what they do with it,
Mhm.
but I'm willing to bet that they don't really have a character as memorable as that, like a side
Yeah.
character. I really love when movies do that too, where like they do something, they'll add a random character like that who you wouldn't expect to be in the film, and they just
Yeah.
bring so much like humor to it.
Mhm.
And that's really the thing about these movies. It's just like they have these little hallmarks that we can all tie back to our own lives. Like not everybody's lived their life exactly like this, but
Mhm.
everybody knows like a George Banks, everybody knows a Nina and stuff like that.
George Banks is my father, and Nina is my mother. It's just,
Exactly. So
and another thing I really love about Father of the Bride is we let Diane Keaton kind of go back to her roots. She has that Annie Hall vibe in this without like the, looming threat of a sexual predator on set. Um,
I wonder who that could be.
um, and I think she thrives in those roles. I mean, as much as George Banks is like not George Banks, sorry, as much as Steve Martin plays a great patriarch in like a, what we would call a stereotypical standard family,
Yeah.
Diane Keaton plays just as much as a role in that, in the sense that she's like the strong, powerful, level-headed matriarch that
Yeah.
like she doesn't get to be a lot of times. Like You watch that movie and you're like, that's Kay from The Godfather.
It's kind of in a way I've always found this dynamic fascinating where it's like on the surface, the dad is the one who is like in control, so to speak, but then you
Yep.
realize like, oh, the mom, she's the one who's in charge, if you really
Mhm.
think about it. So,
Mom is in charge in almost every aspect
mhm.
that you see in a family.
Almost all my friends say that. It's just like everybody's just like, well, I mean, yeah, dad leads the charge, but what mom says goes, sort of
Yep.
thing. So,
100%. 100%.
and usually it works out. So,
It does. It does.
yeah.
Mother knows best. Happy Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day. Actually, it's funny. A friend of mine, Primo, actually, shout out to Alex Primo. He sent me this meme where it was like when usually people post about Mother's Day, it's just like, oh my God, like all she's ever done is like life is all about her family and everything. She's a saint and everything. And then the dad's just like, yeah, I just finished a couple of brewskis. Like it's like the dad's just hanging out, which I
Mhm.
love the
Like
vibe of.
waxing poetic in like the most beautiful prose since Shakespeare, describing how
Yeah.
much your mother has impacted your life. And on Father's Day, you're like, not HBD, HFD, Dad, love ya. Can't wait for a round of golf later.
Oh my God. No, this is yeah, but I mean this is like why I wanted to talk about these movies because they're fun, but
Mhm.
just as a nice little tribute to all the dads out there. We
Mhm.
love you. Some more than others, obviously, because we're biased.
Mhm.
But yeah, do you have
Shout
any
out
other
to my dad. I love you, King.
Happy Father's Day,
Um,
Bob? Yeah, there he
we got a
is.
face app the other day.
Oh my God, I love that.
Iconic. Yeah.
Yeah, any final thoughts on the movies or
Do we do our
something to leave
favorite
you with?
parts from Father of the Bride too?
Oh yeah, we got to get into that. So
Which like emphasis on the father and Father of the Bride too.
yeah, yeah, part two. Do you want to go first on this one?
On what my favorite parts are?
Yeah.
Okay, I have a sentimental one and I have a funny one. The funny one first. I love when Franck gives George a sleeping pill because he hasn't been sleeping. And
Okay. Yeah.
just the way he says it kills me. He's at
Hmm.
the dinner table. He took like four, I think, and Franck meant to be like, take them, take one tonight, take one tomorrow, take one the other 2 days.
Yeah.
And he goes, can you pass the rolls? They're sitting at dinner. He passes out.
You
That
know where
part
it's going.
kills me.
Yeah.
And then the sentimental part that I love is, oh wait, I actually have three. Um, when Franck shows George the nursery that
Yeah.
he designed for the baby, I just think that nursery is beautiful, and it's a sweet moment where George, they kind of go, there's a tete-a-tete
Yeah.
between George and Franck throughout both movies, and I think that this is the time where we see like they love each other. Like Franck, it's obvious he loves George, but George never really verbalizes his appreciation of Franck until
Yeah.
that
But
moment.
you feel it. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I love the part where Franck is teaching Annie and Nina prenatal yoga.
Hmm.
I just think that part's funny too.
No, I love those moments too. And I mean, I'm thinking I can't pick a moment at the time, but I really love the chemistry between Steve Martin and Diane Keaton. It's like
Yeah.
not just that they're talented, but like you really feel a sense like, oh, like I'd buy that they were an older couple.
Yeah.
And they would like they feel like that really cool couple that you'd meet like down the street or something like that in your neighborhood.
Mhm.
Um, a specific moment though, not exactly like sweet, but it's one of those moments. The first time I saw it, I was like rolling on the floor laughing.
Mhm.
Was Steve Martin's like sleep deprived? He's at the hospital, and they're all excited.
Oh, I know
Everybody who's
exactly
like,
what you're gonna say.
you know where I'm going with this.
Yep.
Everybody who's like who's been expecting or like has a kid knows about how stressful it is. I mean, first of
Mhm.
all, pregnancy being a stressful situation in and of
Yeah.
itself, but the process of like getting to the hospital and everything and having like 50 doctors walking in. So Steve Martin, he just happens to stroll into a room where the doctor's giving him a rectal exam. Great visual comedy. They're
Mhm.
bringing him in. I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure the doctor's like, "All right, bring him in," and he's putting the gloves on,
Yep.
and like his middle finger just pops up.
Mhm.
Door closes, camera just stays locked down. Steve Martin pops out and he's pulling his pants up and he just goes, "Do I know you?"
An unappreciated aspect of the humor there is that when that happens, it's like 9 p.m. What hospital is giving prostate exams at 9 p.m.?
Yeah, it's like that's a situation too where it's like, do you fault the movie or does it make it funnier because of how random that is?
Yeah.
Like,
And when Frank is driving to the hospital and those young people drive up
yeah,
and they think that George is like mocking them because he's out cold on sleeping pills.
yeah.
Hilarious.
Oh man, so many little vignettes and I can't decide which one I prefer. I guess most people say the first one, probably.
I like the second one more.
Interesting. I honestly, I really do like the second one,
I
if I'm
love
being
the
honest.
second one.
Just like
That one I always
comedy.
liked more when I was little too.
Yeah, like you think you rewatched it more?
Definitely, 100%. I think I
Yeah.
had only seen the first one a handful of times. I watched the second one like once a week when I was 6. It was my favorite.
Yeah. One could say it's the Paddington 2 of
It
Father's
is
the Bride
the
movies.
If we're talking sequels, this is better than, The Godfather 2. Congratulations to Diane Keaton.
Oh man. But yeah, I mean, these are really great movies, and
Mhm.
I'm glad to talk about them on Father's Day. So even though I think we're a little past the time, but still, we got them out here. Just to
Yeah.
wrap things up, but Anna, thank you so much for being on this episode because I'm really happy that
Thank
we got to
you
talk
for
about it.
inviting me, Ryan. The minute you told me it was Father of the Bride, I was in.
No, it's true.
But
Anna was just
considering
like,
it's
yeah.
Father's Day, I went, we're doing Father of the Bride, baby. Let's go.
I mean, what other movie can you talk about? Like Daddy's Home, I guess.
There's no other father movie that like
Yeah.
would compare. Maybe The Parent Trap. But
Maybe The
that's not
Parent
even
Trap.
fully father. That's mother too. That's twin dynamic. It's not
Yeah.
specifically father and child based.
Oh my God. But yeah, yeah, these are really solid films. Happy Father's Day to everybody. Hope you had a good time as we did. And yeah, we're just gonna sign off. So see you next time.